Man, so I've accumulated 210,930 and 45 cents. What am I going to do with this money in my retirement accounts for the federal government? I have a retirement account as a civilian when I worked as a federal employee. I no longer do. And I have my retirement money from when I was a great hero serving my country, and I still technically am. That's $160,000. So this is my total retirement portfolio that is inside the Thrift savings plan. How am I going to grow this? What is my master plan? And when I hit retirement, how am I going to change my asset allocation in order to ensure my money doesn't run out? Well, in this video, we're going to answer that question. So let's dive right into the Thrift savings plan. The Thrift savings plan is a federal 401k. It's a tax-advantaged investment retirement plan. You put money in, either you get a tax benefit up front with the traditional, or you put in with the Roth and you get a tax benefit on the back end. But you put money in there, it's basically locked away. It grows, hopefully, and when you reach age 59 and a half, or in some cases 55, you can start withdrawing the money without any penalties. There may be tax consequences if you invested in the traditional, but generally when you hit 59 and a half, you can start taking money out without a penalty, which is different from taxes. So what is my master plan? How am I going to design my Thrift savings plan portfolio? Right now, I am 34 years old. I plan to work probably my entire life. But at some point, if I'm really old and tired because the world has just, sucked out all my love and joy, and I decide to finally stop working, I already know exactly what I'm going to do in 30 or 40 years. It's a brilliant plan. Let's dive into it. My only investment is the L2065 fund. The L fund is what's called a life cycle fund. It starts off where it's 100% stock, or in this case, 99% stock. And then over time, the fund automatically transitions you over into a asset allocation where you have bonds and stock. And the theory is that as you get older, you're going to need money at some point. You're going to need to, be able to access some money without it being subject to the whims of the market. Right now, the 2065 fund is 99% allocated to stock. We have the G fund, 0.4%. That's basically these special government bonds. We have the F fund, which is another bond investment, but it's not a specific special government bond fund. We have the C fund, which is the S&P 500's 51% of the portfolio. We have the S fund at 13.46%, which is the rest of the U.S. stock market. And then you have the I fund, 34.65%. This is international stocks, excluding some of our adversaries. The TSP doesn't allow you to invest in certain countries because we don't like them. But basically, you're mostly exposed to Europe, Japan, South Korea, stuff like that. Some of our buddy boys. So, what is the problem with the L2065 fund? Well, as I reiterated earlier, over time, the fund starts to transition from basically 100% stocks. I don't even know why they have that 1% in there. Bonds, to be honest. But they transition from 100% stocks, and they have this glide path that over time it changes your asset allocation to have a higher percentage of your portfolio in fixed income, the G fund and the F fund. And it reduces the percentage of your portfolio that is in the C, S, and I fund, S&P 500, S fund, rest of the U.S. stock market, and I fund, international stocks. We could see that starting in 2037, which is quite a long time away, this fund is going to start transitioning into more bonds. You can see the orange and the, tea or red. I don't even know what that color is. I'm bad with colors. But you can see over time that by the time it hits 2065, this fund is going to be 64% government bonds, 5% other bonds, and then it's only going to be roughly 30% stocks. In my humble opinion, I think your retirement portfolio should have more than just 30% stocks. Now, stocks are volatile, but they have higher expected returns because you're taking more risk than if you buy a government bond. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're going to retire for 30, 40 years, you got to make the money last. So you need a portion of your portfolio that has higher expected returns. That's going to hopefully generate higher returns into the future. That's not guaranteed. But if you just put your money in bonds, or the vast majority of your money in bonds, you're probably going to have a hard time beating inflation. You might match inflation, but you're not going to beat inflation. So my humble opinion, I think these funds are too conservative when it comes to retirement income. So what is my master plan to use these funds to my advantage, but also not go heavily into bonds? Very simple. I know the 2065 fund is not going to start transitioning to 100% or to more bonds until 2037. That's kind of when the transition starts to happen. I see my portfolio as two different components. I have a total stock component, and then I have a stable, basically safe bond component. The bond component's purpose is not to crush and get massive returns. The bond component's purpose is to provide me stable cash that I know will be there exactly when I need it. The G fund doesn't really fluctuate. It's basically they just pay you interest. Okay, it's like the special program they have with the TSP. Stocks can fluctuate wildly. They can go all over the place. Stocks can drop 30, 40, 50%, even more. Okay, we don't know how bad they could drop. Stocks are very volatile. And the last thing you want to do is want to start decumulating from your portfolio right when the market crashes. It's called sequence of return risk, where you have a huge drop in your stock assets, but you're forced to sell them because you don't have any money in stable securities like the G fund. So what am I going to do? Well, up until 2037, the stock component of my portfolio is going to be in the L2065 fund. And as it starts to transition, I'm going to say, hey, well, by that point, they're going to have a 2070 fund, a 2075 fund. I'm going to move the stock portion of my portfolio into the L2070 2075 fund to keep that stock portion of my portfolio basically 100% in stocks. It's all right there. I don't have to time the market. I don't have to pick different countries or different market cap sizes. I basically own the market that I can invest in the TSP at market cap weights. It's an agnostic approach to long-term investing where you believe the market over time will appropriately price securities. So in my opinion, all I have to do is if I want to keep that stock portion of my portfolio 100% stock or 99% stock, because TSP is a little weird with that, I can move that stock portion to 2075. Because in 2037, when we have the 2070-2075 fund, that's going to be basically back here on the timeline. So I have even more time to keep that portion of my stock portfolio 100% pure. If I need to start allocating to bonds because I want a little bit of stability, which I'm going to start doing before I retire. I'm not going to hit retirement and then suddenly transition to try to mitigate that sequence of return risk. I'm going to put a portion of my portfolio in the G fund. The G fund, like I said, is basically a special government fund that is just for the TSP that isn't subject to the whims of interest rate risk. Interest rate risk is a legitimate risk for bonds. When interest rates go up, bond prices go down. When interest rates go down, bond prices go up. If you are in bonds, long-term bonds at or near retirement, and interest rates suddenly spike, you will get obliterated. I 100% guarantee you. Go look at the TLT ETF if you want to know what I'm talking about. So, as I was saying, the stock component of my portfolio will be 199% stock. That's the best I can do. The bond portion of my portfolio is going to be in the G fund. Why do I pick the G fund? Well, the G fund is a special type of security that doesn't really have any principal volatility. You basically just collect interest. The reason you buy this is for stability. If you bought the F fund, it's actually subject to interest rate risk. Look at the negative returns over the last 3 years. Where did that come from? Interest rates went up, so bond prices went down. Now, over time, this should theoretically self-correct because now you're collecting higher interest payments, theoretically, from this. But in the short term, you don't want your bond portion of your portfolio going down when you need the cash now. Very simple. So I made this little Excel sheet where you can put your portfolio balance, you can put your safe withdrawal rate, whatever you want that to be, and you can put your desired years in cash that you want to construct your portfolio. So let's say I retired with that portfolio right now, $210,000. I'm assuming that I can take out 4% of my portfolio every year because I just pulled the number out of my butt. I think I can pull out 4%. I want to be conservative. And I want 5 years of cash. What does my portfolio look like? Well, the main holding is 2065 or later, because remember, the 2065 will eventually start to transition to bonds, and that'll kind of screw up your asset allocation. But all you got to do is, if you want to keep that portion of your portfolio 100% stock, go to 2075 or 2080 or whatever is most available right now. And that will give you 100% stock for that portion, and you don't have to tinker around. That's the stock portion. It's going to be 80% of my portfolio at $168,000. So 80% of my portfolio is invested in stocks, more volatile but higher expected returns. This will help sustain my money because I want a stock or growth portion of my portfolio. The G fund will have $42,000 in it. This is the amount of money I can safely withdraw. We'll divide it by 5. But I can safely have 5 years of cash to be able to withdraw. Now, you may say, well, that's not enough money to live on. I mean, you take 42 divided by 5, and that gives you an annual income that you can pull out of there of $8,400. Well, guess what, bucko? If that's what you got, that's what you got. Either you work longer or you live with it. But I will have 5 years of cash. 5 years. So if the stunk market crashes, guess what? I got 5 years of cash where I don't have to touch this at all. I don't have to sell my stocks at all, and I can withdraw from my G fund to fund my current income needs. So I put some benefits here of this kind of asset allocation. You can mess around with this. Maybe you want 6 years of cash. Well, that's your portfolio. Maybe you want 7 years of cash. That's your portfolio. It all really depends on how risky or conservative you want to be and how long you think potential future bear markets could last. I don't know. It's really a personal decision. What are the benefits of this? Like I said, you have years of cash to weather drawdowns. You don't have to worry if the market goes down, which I know everybody thinks stocks just vertical line forever. That's not true. Okay, they can go down for many years. You have cash sitting there. And yeah, the cash isn't going to make a lot of money. That's true. That's not the point of it. Okay? That's not the point. It's for stability. It also provides simplicity. There's 2 funds in here. L2065, stonks. G fund, bonds. That's it. 2 funds. Can you manage this? I think you could handle this personally. You don't have to roll this over into an IRA and start buying Tesla. You keep it super simple so you can't screw it up. Okay? And then last but not least, long-term growth potential to sustain retirement. You got to have stocks in your retirement portfolio. You can't just go 100% bonds. They barely keep up with inflation. So if you live 30 years, there's a good chance you're going to withdraw all your money, run out of money. And you got to be cognizant of that. So this is my plan. Super simple. It uses the existing funds without me having to have this crazy asset allocation. And you really can't screw it up. I mean, then again, anybody can screw things up. But that's my plan. And this is assuming that I only had money in my thrift savings plan. What I'm going to do is over time, I'm probably going to try to consolidate all my accounts into one brokerage so I can literally construct my entire portfolio in one brokerage and see everything at once without having money scattered around. But right now, I'm still in the military. I can't cash it out yet. I don't want us to go through a massive bull market and the money's in transit between brokerage accounts. For now, I'm going to leave my money scattered around. This is not my only investment account. But when I hit retirement, I'm going to do that just for the simplicity portion. So hopefully that made sense. I believe in simplicity. I believe in not timing the market. I believe in not picking individual stock markets. I don't believe that you should only invest in one country. I think you should let the market decide over the long run because you are investing for 30 or 40 years. And if you need cash now, you have the G Fund. Have a wonderful day.